University Career Services. I'm really excited, and it's my pleasure today to be one of the co-facilitators for today's session, Virtual Career Fair Prep. And I am joined today by one of our guest facilitators, Ms. Ailea Guajardo from MEDICS, one of our corporate recruiters at University of Houston. So I'm going to quickly allow her to introduce herself and share what she does at MEDICS, and then we'll jump right in.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be able to speak with you guys today and kind of go over some tips and tricks to make your career fair season as successful as possible. And first and foremost, just doing these types of workshops with the University Career Center is a huge leg up. So you're headed in the right direction. So as Adalia said, I am a corporate recruiter from MEDICS. MEDICS is a nationwide staffing agency. And we have 18 offices all across the United States. And I actually cover our Houston office and Nashville office in are all things recruitment, internal recruitment for them. So we're definitely had a very great opportunity to partner with the University Career Center. So excited to help you guys out today. And just as Adalia said, seriously, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them on the employer front. I know these things can be scary, but we want to make it as seamless as possible for you all. Yeah. Thanks, Adalia.
You're welcome. Awesome. Thank you, Ailea. This is just a brief little overview of what we will cover in today's workshop. I do want to briefly cover some of our career services, especially as it's the beginning of a new semester and we are fully virtual. So I want to talk to all of the students today who are joining us about everything that we're offering through virtual formats with our office. We are definitely going to cover how you can prepare for a virtual career fair and virtual recruiting events. You'll be hearing direct examples and ways to prepare from Ailea, our recruiter, and then also learn ways on how you can best follow up after recruiting events and career fairs. So we'll cover a little of everything, but I do want to invite you all, if there's something specific that you'd like to learn today, please add it into the chat box. And that way we know to cover it. All right, so just a quick rundown of some of our career services, virtual resources and services for each of you. Since we can no longer have quick walk-in appointments, which we used to call drop-in hours, where you would just walk in 15 minutes, have your resume reviewed, ask a quick question, maybe someone looks at your cover letter. Since we are no longer able to do that at the same rate as before, we've now started implementing virtual chats. So simply by logging onto our main website, so uh.uh.uch.edu/UCS, you'll on the main homepage, you'll see that there's a quick little red chat box at the bottom corner, just like this one that says Get Help Live Chat. And those are every Monday through Friday, 2 hours in the morning time, 10 to 12, and then 2 hours in the afternoon, 2 to 4. And when you see this as red, that means that there is a career services staff member on the other side of that ready to help you and have a quick little resume review, answer a quick question. So I just want to let everyone know we are available to help out, especially since the next bullet point, our career counseling appointments have been very booked early in the semester. And so, you know, those are still available, and we post new appointments every Thursday. Those are 30-minute career counseling appointments. But if those are ever booked to speak with your direct career counselor, just know that you can log in to utilize virtual chats. It's really quick, it's really simple, and a really helpful way to get some one-on-one feedback. And all of our workshops and events for the entire fall semester are virtual this semester. So we are requiring students to RSVP for those events, so that way we can send you either the Microsoft Teams access code, just like today, or if it's going to be on Zoom or whatever platform. So make sure that you RSVP for those events. All of our events and upcoming workshops can be found on Cougar Pathway. You have probably all been receiving our flyers for our virtual workshops and our events such as the career fair. But you can RSVP for all of those and look at the full details on Cougar Pathway. And I invite all of you to do that. And just go ahead and RSVP for things. Mark them in your calendar so that way you'll get the reminder the day of as well. And so we have all of our workshop lineup. We have even implemented a few special ones for any graduate students that I might have in the workshop today. If you're an international student, a first generation college student, we have special workshops for you this year. And we're really excited about those partnerships. And many of you are probably here because you might be attending the All Majors Virtual Career Fair happening in about 2 weeks. It's on September 16th, 12 to 4. So hopefully a lot of you are here because you're preparing for that day. And keep in mind this right here, the pre-event tutorial for that specific event will be September 14th, 3 to 4. In addition to those things that I've already mentioned on Cougar Pathway, you can also use this platform to search and apply for on-campus jobs, internships, even full-time jobs with our employers who we have partnered with. And so this is where you can upload and have your resume approved. If it's not approved, I highly recommend that you use virtual chats or set up an appointment so that way we can give you some feedback on it. Because once it is approved, you can actually start applying for all of the jobs posted on Cougar Pathway. And we're really excited to be able to see those jobs coming in again after a big lull in the summer. So be sure to RSVP for those events coming up. So before we do begin, just to cover some of the goals that we will talk about, you're going to be learning strategies for how to prepare for career fairs, as well as what to share when you're talking one-on-one with recruiters, what you can ask specifically. So I want to invite each of you today, please engage in the workshop by either asking your questions, or if we ask you any questions, have you raise your hand, please feel free to engage. We're going to do a quick little practice of that. And so I want to invite each of you, raise your virtual hand either on screen or using the raise your hand function if you have never attended just any career fair ever. And I already see a few hands coming up. Look at that. Wow. It's a majority. And I had a feeling because a lot of times students who do come to these workshops, it's because it's their first time. So just know that you're not alone. Clearly, almost everyone in this workshop has raised their hand. And if you have attended a career fair, it maybe was a face-to-face career fair, and virtual ones are very different nowadays. And we'll be able to hear from Ilea about what her experience as a corporate recruiter has been. So thank you. You can lower your hands now. I see that a lot of students are doing that. Awesome. And please feel free, if you hear me say raise your hand, we might do that every so often. All right. So what would be the benefit of attending a career fair at all? Obviously, the top two bullet points that you see are what we automatically think of, that we want to meet one-on-one with different recruiters at maybe our top desired companies. And this is probably one of the best reasons why you want to go to a career fair. It's almost like that pre-screen, almost like that first interview without it being a formal interview, because recruiters are able to meet you, see your personality, hear from you about why you want to work at that company or what your skills are. So that meeting one-on-one time is one of the huge benefits and opportunities for attending a career fair. However, many of you might look at this as this is my best way to apply directly for a job or internship. I'm sorry, Pablo, I can't let you share my screen right now. And so this could be one of the methods to apply directly for a job or internship. However, for a few of you, if this is your first time ever attending a career fair, or maybe you're starting to slowly explore what are the different recruiting options, recruiting events out there, this is going to be a really wonderful way for you to practice those networking skills, especially if you're still new at networking events or recruiting events. It's also going to help you gain that confidence just from exploring a career fair for the first time for future fairs. And so I usually, when we have face-to-face fairs, I usually like to tell first-time attendees to go and do a lap, right? To walk in between all of the different booths and just get a lay of the land. And so that way, once you've already figured out, okay, what you're working with, it helps you gain confidence to stand in line in a booth to speak with an employer. All of these are still true, even in a virtual format. So keep that in mind that all of these benefits exist. Ilea, did you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice in the sense that, there's a lot of different opportunities and reasons to go to a career fair, but even if it's your first career fair, that's perfect opportunity to just kind of understand the different formats and understand, hey, who's coming to these things and what are some of the opportunities that are available for me, my major, and my career path. So definitely explore all the companies, look at them, and obviously we'll touch a little bit more on this, but certainly do some research on who's going to be there to make your time most useful. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. I already see 2 questions. So when are career fairs happening during the semester? And will there be career fairs on campus this semester? So none of the career services hosted career fairs will be on campus. I don't want to speak for any of the other career centers at UH, but for the most part, they will all be virtual. So just make sure to inform yourself on what those platforms or what those career centers will be utilizing for their career fairs. We will most likely be emailing everyone to their UH email. And then another question, you mentioned if our resume was not approved. Awesome, we'll be talking about the resume. Okay, so Lorena, I will get to your question. We're going to be talking a little bit about the resume in today's workshop. Cool. Oh, here it is. So making sure that you are preparing your resume before the career fair is going to be critical. So I want to touch briefly on what can I do to prepare my resume. Many times recruiters have told us directly, us, your career counselors, or your career services professionals, that they're really receiving such a large stack of resumes at career fairs. And so when they go home with that stack, they're usually already making mental notes about who were those students that really stood out to them. And so but they might still take home that full stack of resumes, but it's very, it can be time consuming to devote lots and lots of time to every single resume. And so that's why we encourage students to make sure that your resume stands out with a quick glance under 30 seconds. And so what I usually tell students is you want to make sure that it is highly presentable and professional. So keep it to that one page, but making sure that you demonstrate that you've really taken the time to demonstrate that your skills are a great match for the position or that company. I always encourage to have your resume professionally reviewed by our office, by a professional, either using our services that I've listed here, or just that one-on-one with someone. And just as a heads up, we have a resume workshop from a previous workshop through our office on our YouTube page. So be sure to check out our YouTube page when you have a chance. Ilea, did you want to jump in and maybe talk about what that experience is like receiving several resumes at a career fair?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if everyone has been to an in-person career fair, and if you've never been, it can be a little overwhelming sometimes getting so many resumes. And you do have really great conversations, but, career fairs are anywhere from 3 to 4 hours. And at that time, depending on who's there, you could get, 60 or 70 resumes. But I will definitely agree with Avalia and say that the more professional a resume looks, just at first glance, that's so key. The Career Center does a great job of giving you some layouts and some templates of what a resume should look like. And I highly, highly recommend looking at that. And just from our company's perspective, we love when we see the U of H format for resumes. It's just clean, it's presentable, and it's easy to highlight. And as a university student, especially an undergrad student, please, please, please keep it to one page. There's really, really rare times where a 2-page resume is needed. In most of the time when you have 2 pages, it's just a little bit too run on, and you should never really staple them. Always have 2 separate individual pages if it's really needed, but usually 1 page and you're solid. And always make sure you have your contact information very visible, because that's, usually the first thing we look at is to, after reviewing, like, can we easily contact this person? So always a cool thing too. If you have a LinkedIn, you can always put your LinkedIn on there quickly. And that's a good way for employers to connect with you pretty quickly as well. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And so we won't dive too deep into the resume, mostly because today's workshop is on how to prepare for our virtual career fair. But I do want to recommend everyone, my colleague Priyanka Rao dropped the YouTube link, and that will take you to our YouTube channel. So please make some time today to maybe watch the resume workshop on YouTube if you have questions. Cool. So we've already started hearing from Ilea, and so I'm now going to hand it over to her. And Ilea, please let me know if you'd like me to click anytime. You just say click and I'll click for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So, a lot of people ask, like, and this is a common question we always get after doing interviews, what are you looking for in a candidate, right? And that's a great question. But every employer, every position will have a different answer. But I think some of the top key points are listed on the screen. Communication skills, problem solving skills, working in group settings and team settings, and really highlighting your problem solving skills through your analytical and quantitative skills as well. So just kind of from a recruiter's perspective, I think first and foremost, when you're in a career fair setting, communication is the first thing that you'll see right off the bat, right? How you present yourself to a recruiter is going to really be so key. And we do talk about this later on in the presentation, but just your introduction to a recruiter and that what we call elevator pitch, quote unquote, is just a good start to your communication skills. Are you confident in what you're saying? Can you tell us quickly in a few sentences what you're looking for and why you're looking for those things? So I think that's always really, really key. And communication so quickly ties into your ability to work in a team environment. Especially kind of in this world that we're living in. I think we're almost at a point where we have to over communicate because, it may be that we can't see our team members on a daily, or we can't, have that same office interaction that we would. So I think that ability to communicate ties so quickly into working in a team, right? So teamwork is huge, especially at MEDX. Something that we really focus on is our core value, which is locking arms with each other, which basically is just a fancy, crazy term for teamwork and being able to help your team, because we always feel that, we're as strong as our weakest link, and we want to make sure that we're always doing things to make sure that we're getting to that next level, and that comes through everyone, contributing. So having things on your resume that are group projects or something that you highlight, hey, I've worked on a team, I led a team, something like that is always really valuable as well. And leadership, right? That is a big one too. We always like to see people who are actively involved in student organizations. And that comes in working in a team as well, your communication skills, because all of those things are going to get you to that leadership position in, a student organization, in a part-time job, or even maybe a full-time job if you're going to school and going and working full-time. I know I did that, and it's really tough. So right there, having those two things on your resume also highlights your time management skills and your ability to really problem solve. So I think they're all very interconnected. But I think something too to highlight is when you're in a leadership role, how did you get there? And always being able to tell the why and how behind the what is on the resume. I think also something to highlight too, and something that kind of ties into leadership is, where were you maybe vulnerable? You know, we all have times, I think, especially in school, when we go through challenges and experiences that really build our leadership skills and build the way we think about either a role or mentality. So I think something that's important to highlight is being able to explain, hey, these are some of the things that I've overcome and this is what I learned from them, is really key too, because that really ties into those leadership skills and goes into your work ethic. And I think that's really noticeable in a resume as well. So yeah, that's a little bit on desired employer skills. So if you want to go to the plan and the organization behind the career fair. So this is really key too, right? So for everyone, and we talked about this at the beginning, having an idea of where you want to go in a career fair is really important. Depending on what career fair you go to, there's going to be at least 50 plus companies, right? And you want to make sure that you have a really great idea of, you know, what companies you want to go to and why. I always say, have your top like 5 companies and then have like 5 other companies you're interested in, but those top 5 you want to hit right away. And just a tidbit, if it's your first career fair and you're just doing this for some experience and to gain some confidence and understanding, very, very okay just to kind of talk to different employers, tell them what you're looking for and kind of your purpose for talking to them. But, you know, be open and be like, I really just want to network. And really just hear about your company, because that's a great way to, if you're you know, a freshman or a sophomore, to start building your pipeline of recruiters that you can reach out to when it is time to get those internships and full-time opportunities. So always love when freshmen and it's your first career for first semester, you come up to us and say, hey, like, I don't know if you have anything for me, but I'd love to network with you. I think that's such a great way to show initiative and kind of get your name out there and put a face to a recruiter's name in a company. So I would say that's kind of the strategy aspect of it. And then be prepared to share, right? So sharing is so key, because it all kind of ties into that elevator pitch part of it. You know, you want to make sure that you get the most amount of skills and highlights of your resume in that, you know, 10-15 second pitch that you may have. So when you're preparing to share, think about some of the things that you're really strong at, or some things that you're really proud of that you've accomplished during your college career, and tie that into that elevator pitch. We'll talk a little bit in just a second about what that elevator pitch looks like and kind of how to build that out. But I do some, you know, self-reflecting right before the career fair and say, hey, what do I want to highlight to a recruiter? And it could be different for every company, right? You may be talking to a tech company, and then you may be talking to an accounting firm, you know, or you may be talking to a nonprofit. All of them have a different, you know, position that they're hiring for. And you may have different skills that you want to highlight to those different organizations. So be prepared to share that information and to know your own skill set, to make sure that the employer quickly knows, hey, this is a good person because XYZ. So I think we're good there. You can go to the next slide, Avalia. Yeah, so this also goes into your strategy, right? So as I mentioned, researching employers and having that top 5 list, and maybe that second 5 employers you might be interested in, is going to be so key. And it shows such really, really good initiative on your part, and really just a good presence when you just quickly tell the recruiter something about their company that you know, they may not know, or that's on their website, and it's going to show them quickly, like, hey, they did their research, they understand why they want to talk to us, and it shows initiative and interest. I would highly recommend going to LinkedIn and start following all the companies you're truly, truly interested in pursuing when you do graduate, or if it's for an internship, same thing. Never hurts to just send a quick LinkedIn message to someone in the company and just say, hey, I'm open to networking. I'd love to just be a part of your network and see a little bit more about what your company does. And and that's a great way just to see what someone from the company is actually saying, and also to see what their corporate page is putting out. So when you do go for those interviews and you do go connect with them at career fairs or networking mixers, whatever the case may be, you have some things to touch on. So definitely check out the company website. Huge aspect of what you're going to find as far as information, what they're recruiting on, and some of the projects that any company really is going to be working on. It's going to be at the company website. I'd say probably 80 to 90% of companies always have like a press release section or what's new section that will update the public on what projects they're working on or what is something new that they're talking about in their field or industry. Always read that. That's really helpful, and it'll give you a quick highlight of something that's changing or new, and it'll show you quickly what's going on in the company.
I have a great question in the chat, and I'd love for you to help the student with tackling this one. So they asked, their question is regarding employers who are desiring some years of work experience when many students might not have that direct year or more than 1 year of that direct work experience in the field. So what advice would you give to students about how to either pull in other experiences or how to marry those two together, those work experiences in transferable opportunities or even desired skills?
Yeah, no, that's a great question and a really good point, right? I think first and foremost, always look at the job description that you're applying for, right? If it does say, hey, you need 10 years of work experience, coming out of college, and it depends what level, right? It may not be the absolute best fit for you at that moment, but there's no problem in getting there and building that experience. And I think the way to do it, if you have a job, you're applying for a role you're really passionate about applying for, and it says, hey, you need 3 years of work experience. There's no reason you can't apply for it. Always raise your hand, because you just obviously don't know what, other people are looking for, or just like you said, those skills are going to come so in handy. So I think something always to keep in mind is internship opportunities, externships, job shadows, anything like that you can put on your resume that's going to give you skills that may not necessarily be direct work experience. Internships obviously are, but job shadows, externships, things that are like 1 day or 2 days, really show that you're going to go and you're taking a proactive initiative into getting some experience under your belt and understanding companies and understanding the field that you're wanting to go into. And then also, if you do have any part-time positions you are working on and you're doing throughout school, that most certainly is work experience. Because for me personally, as a recruiter, and just, in general, I certainly understand having to go to school and still working. So always highlight the top things that you're doing at your job. And if that's, a student on campus position, find ways to take leadership opportunities in those roles, find ways to kind of go above and beyond in the role that you currently have to put on your resume, hey, these are the things that I did for the company that may not have been in my job description, but I went out of my way, I did it, and this is how I feel that can add to those, several years of work experience, if that makes sense. And I hope that helps as well.
Mm-hmm. And I will close that out by saying, if you are struggling to identify those transferable experiences that Alia is referring to, set up an appointment with your career counselor, or again, using those virtual chats to speak with someone. And that way we can give you some of that counseling and that coaching for how to speak about those experiences at a career fair with confidence. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I did see that there was one more question, but I think we're going to be able to get to that one in a little while, closer to the middle/end. So I'll come back to that question from student with first name D.
Sure.
Would you like to continue?
Yeah, absolutely. So talking to employers virtually. So I think first and foremost, we all have to understand this is a new world for everyone. So just like you guys may never been to a career fair, some employers we haven't dabbled in virtual career fairs yet. I'll be pretty honest, the first one I did was actually with U of H through Microsoft Teams. And I was so nervous because I was like, how am I going to make my company stand out? And how am I going to connect with someone over the internet, right? But I think the first and foremost thing that we have to all understand is it's a new world for everyone, and that's okay. And there's going to be challenges with technology. There's going to be hiccups with, the chat function or someone getting frozen. That's okay. We are all human. We're all in this new world. And I definitely just want to stress every employer you talk to is probably going to be very, very understanding of this. Because it happens to us every day. Every day I can say I'm probably on a meeting and my internet goes out and I'm like, oh man, I missed the key highlight of what I was saying in my presentation, right? So I think first and foremost, we understand that. But kind of once you're in that setting with an employer, I think it's super, super important to stress your interest in the company and why you are interested. And like I said, this may be you're a senior, you're looking for a job, or you're a graduate student, and this is the next step for you. Or if you're a freshman and you are exploring those opportunities and just wanting to network, always be pretty honest about what you're looking for and why you feel that, you are interested in this particular company, whether that's just networking or a full-time opportunity, and share how your background is going to affect the company and really add value to the company. So when talking about relevant skills, right? Obviously, it's going to be determined on you and what you're looking to do. So a lot of the times too, it's totally and very understandable to say, hey, like I was studying biology all through college, and then I just realized I wasn't passionate about being a doctor. Share that story, explain to them, because, honestly, you may look at a resume and I may get a resume that says, hey, it's an electrical engineer. And for our company, doesn't really make sense. But, if you have that opportunity to talk to an employer and say, hey, like, this is why I'm interested and why I feel that my skill sets in electrical engineering can be relevant to XYZ job, whatever the case may be. But always be able to have about, I would say, 2 experiences that you're pretty passionate about talking to an employer about. Use your obviously the top one that you feel most passionate about. And then, if they ask you more details or you want more to pull from, you can bring up that next experience. But I would do some prep before and go about different ways of talking about the different experiences, right? And we just talked about, different companies, different industries. Totally okay to have different pitches for each company and to tailor your pitch to the particular company and role that you're interested in. And then kind of, if you think about, you're in a sports analogy, if you will, that you want to make a home run, right? I think, we're all from Houston, so the Astros are pretty prevalent. I think George Springer, every time, he goes up to the mound, he's like, I want to hit a home run, right? Like that would be perfect for the team. Have that end goal in mind as well when you're talking to an employer, right? Try to be as direct as possible, try not to ramble, and try to have that home run, if you will, in your mind, and think of each base as a step, right? And like almost one sentence, like, first base is going to be my introduction, is who I am, what my skill set is. Second base is going to be talking about, a school project or an internship I had. Running that third base, maybe pulling that second experience, or, highlighting some other different experiences or skills on my resume. And that home run is like, hey, let me get their contact information and follow up. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well in the further presentation. But that's always the end goal. What's the next step and how am I going to get that interview? So I hope that helps as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this is, we're going to be switching over to introductions now. And so we often counsel students on creating an elevator pitch, excuse me, creating an elevator pitch so that way you can approach a recruiter with confidence, show personality, and let them know that you are enthusiastic about being there with them, whether it's for 5 minutes of their time. And so I've shown here a brief sample introduction. That first, and I like that sports analogy, that baseball analogy, first base, second base, third base. And so this kind of breaks it down into just that first base. Hi, my name is Adalia Espinosa. I'm a psychology major, and the graduation day. I will be graduating this upcoming May. That lets the recruiter know all of the important points about you. It's the pieces that you share in the chat when you're introducing yourself. Because it shows a little bit, but it doesn't show that full picture. But rather than going in depth and doing a regurgitation of your full resume, you almost want to briefly touch on, in your elevator pitch, touch on why you're excited to look into the opportunity with X, Y, and Z organization, or to complete those responsibilities that you saw in the job description because you did your homework. And then suggesting or offering what those experiences were that you had. So I'm really excited to talk to you about the opportunities that I found at MEDX, for such and such job opening. I'm really excited to jump into the healthcare industry or the whatever it might be. And then sharing briefly why it interests you. I've always wanted to X, Y, and Z. Or I'd really like to help clients or help patients or whatever it might be. But again, using those specific verbs and using those specific skill sets that you have, that's going to be the best way that you can connect with someone in a really sincere way, where you can also show that excitement and that you've done your homework. I'd like to offer you my resume to show you a little bit more about my qualifications. And I'm sorry, I repeated that sentence twice. And so keeping it really short. And so that was just a quick sample. I am going to show a sample video of an introduction as well. And so how do I prep my intro for a virtual setting? Now, in virtual setting, it's not like you can go around booth by booth, wait in a line, and go and introduce yourself. It's a little bit different. I know for the most part, we will be using platforms such as Teams, like this one, where you can visit the different virtual booths, right, by clicking on the different channels. But what I strongly recommend, and what we saw implemented in the summer when we did our first virtual fair, was that simply copy and pasting your introduction is not as personal of a touch as potentially creating an intro video. And so one of my top suggestions to students who are in here today, if you are going to be attending virtual career fairs, I do recommend recording a 30 to 60 second intro video for yourself. You can utilize your phone, you can record yourself on your laptop, etc. And that way that intro video can be viewed by those employers. One, it showcases that you took some time in your day to prepare, to dress the part, and it's also a nice way for them to get to meet you without meeting you in person, right? It's still you and your personality there. So I think that they have a different feel than simply copying and pasting your introduction, and just kind of tweaking the company name on each channel. Still can be done, but a video can really take you to the next level. I recommend keeping it under 60 seconds. And then in your video, share what your top skills or your top career interests are. Similar to your analogy with sports, I always give the analogy of a movie trailer, right? You want it to be just exciting enough to make the recruiter want to know a lot more and go watch your movie. So keeping that in mind. So I'm going to show a really quick introduction. This is one of our recent May graduates. Her name is Yasmin. And one reason why I selected this video is because she's actually one of our success stories. She attended all of the different pre-recruiting event, what's the word I'm looking for? Demonstration days. She utilized our office, but then she also attended a virtual fair, which was back in June for the first time, and she received a job offer and negotiated salary. She's just a rock star. So I want you to see her video as one of your samples. All right. Could you hear her okay? Is the audio okay? Okay, cool. Oh.
Oh.
Adalia, we can't hear.
I think the audio went out.
Oh no. Okay, let's try this again. My apologies. Give me one quick second.
Nope.
Nope. Okay. My apologies, guys. I might not be able to share it, but I will attach it from my computer. And that way you all can watch it on your own time. Especially since I think it's a really great one. She did give us permission to share with students. So so I invite you all to use this as a good model and a good template. And I'm sorry that I wasn't able to match the audio with you all. It is sending in the chat box, so it'll upload pretty shortly. And so I invite each of you when you get a chance to check out that video. All right, so what she does in her video though is she introduces herself with her name, her major, and her major and her graduation date. She shares a little bit about her interest in wanting to join the education industry. And then she also touches on just a few of her past experiences where she's been a tutor at the University of Houston, working with different students, and how she's really excited to meet with different recruiters within the education industry. So it was really nice because she was very intentional about her introduction, keeping it to specifically the education industry. So when you get a chance, and I'm about to hit send now, when you get a chance, check it out. And yeah, I hope that it's really helpful for many of you. If you notice, she also has a pretty clean background. You know, she is dressed for the part. She wore her blazer, a nice little button up. And it really demonstrates that she put in the effort to create this pitch. And so she was able to just share this. I think we had 3 recruiters in education, kept it really simple, but it ended up having some high reward for that effort. All right, so Ailey, I'm going to turn it back to you now. We often coach students on what are some helpful questions to ask at a career fair to the recruiter that won't feel generic, that won't feel that I haven't done my research. I know one of the tips I usually give is that you want to avoid ever asking a question that could have been easily Googled, or that could give the impression that you didn't do any research. And so I've provided just a few here, but I'd love to hear from you about what your thoughts are on best questions to ask you after they've already had that elevator pitch, and then some questions for following up with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So absolutely. I think it all goes back to the research part of it. And for me, like when, after I have a good conversation with a candidate, I always ask them, like, do you have any questions for me? Even at career fairs, because they may, and I think it's so important to have questions ready. But just like you said, always make sure that you do your research, right? So I think something that's kind of unique is, like I had mentioned previously, going to like the press release or the news section of an organization's page, and looking at some of the projects that they've had. Or something also that's kind of cool, and I think especially now, going to their YouTube channel and seeing what videos they've uploaded recently and saying, hey, I saw you uploaded XYZ video, you worked on XYZ project. Can you tell me a little bit about your personal involvement with it? Or, if you have any teammates who were involved in that project and how that turned out for you, right? Also, something that I always like to hear and I think is totally acceptable to hear is, or ask is how I joined MEDX, what's my story with MEDX? And I think that's always really cool too, because it kind of gives the recruiter an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about their company, but also gives you an insight into an employer's and an employee's point of view and why they chose that company. And it may resonate with something that you're looking for in your career search, right? So I think that's something cool too. So yeah, I hope that helps. And then I love all these questions, what is the application process for this position? Super, super important to know. And certainly that follow-up. And I think, we always call it like the lockdown when we're trying to get a candidate to join our organization. I think when you're doing a career fair, it's kind of the reverse, right? You want to lock that recruiter down, if you will, and say like, hey, I want to take the next steps. Like, I'm showing interest. Like, what are we doing? And the follow-up is so important. So as I mentioned, LinkedIn's a great tool to utilize for that, especially this day and age. Ask for their LinkedIn handle and say, hey, can we connect on LinkedIn? Get their email address and send them a follow-up email is always super helpful. But the LinkedIn aspect really is great too, because again, it puts a face to the name, and you can list out all the qualifications that you're wanting to do right there and then. Because just like we get a lot of resumes, during career fairs, we get a lot of follow-up emails. So when you have a LinkedIn, face to a name, and you can quickly click on their profile and see, hey, we talked about XYZ. I remember this conversation. It just is such a quick spark in any employer's mind and say like, oh yes, like I want to continue this conversation. So I hope that helps a little bit on that end.
Awesome. I was typing in, but thank you all for raising your hands in the those of you who are here. We're going to have a little space towards the last maybe 10 minutes to ask questions, so hold on to those questions. So after the event, we do, just like Ailea was saying, we do encourage students to, again, to close that loop and be able to give a thank you. Now, for many people, that could be a thank you email. Just making sure that you reach out and say, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I like to tell my students, make sure that you include something that you learned from that conversation. If you really enjoyed learning about, let's say, an internship opportunity that has a leadership component that you didn't know about, but during your conversation, you learned about that. Maybe it prompted you to go look into it on their website. Include that information. That little nugget of information can really demonstrate that you went that extra step. Just like Ailea was saying, connecting on LinkedIn, apply to the post, right? Apply to the job. Many times it could be that you apply on Cougar Pathway, or it could be that you apply to their job directly on their website. Either way, it does make sure that you are applying directly, so that way you're at least in their system. Or for many of you, you might, after the event, want to connect with a career counselor before doing some of these recommendations, so that way we can coach you through it, especially if you're still uncertain about it. So, before you connect on LinkedIn, maybe you want to get a LinkedIn review from a career counselor, or before you send that thank you email, maybe you want someone to review your email for you, etc. So make sure that you are implementing some of these strategies. Just like in face-to-face career fairs, we do always have a dress code policy. However, for virtual events, we now live in a world where as long as what's on screen is professional, we can wear basketball shorts, yoga pants, whatever we want on our bottoms. But just make sure that you are demonstrating either a business professional, which includes that blazer, a tie if you like it. But then I also, I like to always model, a business casual look can also be professional in a virtual space as well. Especially since having that blazer and a tie could be a little hot, but especially in the still summertime. But definitely you want to showcase your best foot forward by dressing for the event. And even for virtual career fairs where it is highly, techie and maybe a lot of typing, you never know if you get an opportunity to have a one-on-one with the recruiter. Many times during those fairs, the recruiter may say, hey, can I give you a quick video call on the side or offline? And so you want to be ready for that. And so if Ilea happened to want to recruit me, she may want to see me right then and there. I got to be ready and dressed for the part. So always having that dress code on hand. And for any students who might need dress assistance, we have 3 ways that we are able to support students for dressing for the fair. I recommend that each of you visit our either our website or let me type it in here, or our social media handle, which I've just put in the chat right here. It's @KooCareers. We just shared a post, this whole week, with those 3 ways that we're helping students with dress assistance. So be sure to, ask for that support if you need it. If you need a blazer, if you want to rent, an outfit. A lot of the policies have changed due to COVID guidelines, but it doesn't mean that we have stopped. So make sure that you stay connected. Now, what not to do at career fairs? We're close to wrapping up, but I do wanna make sure to include this. Our top tips on what to avoid doing at virtual career fairs is to simply ask, what do you do at MEDX? Or what do you do, what is this company? That is a clear indicator that you didn't research, that you didn't do your homework. And so we tell students, avoid doing that to avoid making yourself appear underprepared or unprepared. You want to avoid asking simple generic questions. I mentioned it earlier about any question that could have been Googled or is too generic of a question. I know the culture question, what is the culture like at this company, has already been utilized so much. So I like to always think, okay, what's another way that you could still learn about the culture without asking, what is the culture like at this company? And then last one, you want to avoid showing any type of disregard for virtual etiquette. So here's what I mean by that. Video on, if you're in let's say a public video where the recruiter is going to give like a 5-minute rundown, but it's open to everyone to join in, keeping your audio on mute and allowing noise, or being underprepared on video, or whatever it might be, or being disrespectful to the other members who are there as well. Any type of disregard for that virtual etiquette is going to appear poorly on you. If you need a little bit of assistance with virtual etiquette, we just had an event this Monday, which was recorded and I think will be shared on our YouTube channel pretty soon. So if you want to brush up on those virtual etiquette skills, it was a great workshop. So I highly recommend that you all watch it. All right, now we're gonna get to your questions. So if you have your hand raised, I hope that you have your question ready. While we do that, I wanna briefly go back to some of those earlier questions that were in the chat. So someone wrote, are cover letters still essential for applying to jobs? And I do wanna make sure that we end on time, so at 1 o'clock, so we'll try and go through all of these questions. So Ilea, are cover letters still essential for applying for jobs and for career fairs?
Yeah, that's a good question. So personally for MedX, we don't require a cover letter, and even in our submission uh, application, it just asks for a resume. It really is dependent on the company and what they're looking for. Personally, I don't really, I want to hear from the person when I interview them. So I don't find too much value in a cover letter, but like I said, very, very independent on what the company is looking for and what the recruiter is looking for. But for MedX, we don't require it. I would say it's a good thing to always have one, and have it reviewed by Career Services, but not necessarily for my company or in my past experience. No.
Awesome. Yeah, and just like you said, making sure that you do have one and that you have it reviewed by us, because some companies may really need it. So Megan asked, I have a recommendation letter from the company I used to work for. How do I include that when applying to jobs? For recommendation letters during the job application process, it's not traditionally included. Recommendation letters are more often included in grad school applications. So just hold on to that letter. You may need it at a later date, but not necessarily for a job application unless it were to explicitly ask for it, but it's not very traditional.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we do ask for references, but we would ask for, maybe a direct reference from a previous supervisor. But as far as a reference letter, it's not really traditionally. I wouldn't say you need a put it into any application you're doing. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And a reference is different than a recommendation letter. References can often be done over the phone. So making sure that you still have those phone numbers and wait until your recruiter asks you for those references. Mohammed says, does having a professional picture on LinkedIn or on Career Pathway matter for career fairs?
Yeah, I can take that if you'd like, Adalia.
Please.
I would say absolutely, right? Your LinkedIn is your professional social media, if you will. And really in all social medias, you should always have a little bit of caution in what you put on. But I would say for LinkedIn, it's definitely so key to have a good headshot. And you do not need to get a fancy headshot done by a photographer by any means. Standing on a blank wall and having your friend take a picture of you in a suit is 100% okay. But I would always say, have business professional on in this particular headshot. Make sure it's decent lighting, and we're all pretty tech savvy. We can definitely edit a photo to make sure it looks all right. And just a really good shot of just your face, right? I think those are super, super key, and it really will help you get more traction on your LinkedIn.
So I'm having lots of questions about the elevator pitch video. So I'm going to try and answer all of them in one swoop. Unfortunately, a lot of students were not able to open it. So I'm going to upload the elevator pitch video that I was supposed to show earlier to our YouTube page by the end of the week. So please make sure that you revisit. I will also try and have it on our website by the end of this week as well. So that way it lives as a great example on our website. So I'm so sorry. My apologies for that. And then someone was asking, how will I share those videos with the representatives at virtual career fairs? It depends on the format that will be utilized for the virtual event. Every institution has probably been different, Ilea. I know for how we used our platform that we used in the summer was Teams, and it was very successful, and it was really great to share video. So just stay in tune with whatever we'll be sharing for the virtual demo day, which is the pre-event demonstration. We will give those tips and make sure that you attend that as well. But usually if it's a virtual platform, it might give the option to upload something in like a chat box. Please feel free to do that. So it is 1 o'clock, but if you have to leave, I completely understand. And Ilea, I want to honor your time as well. but I will stay on for a few more minutes to answer any remaining questions and allow students to unmute, ask questions. But a big, big thank you to Ilea for being with us today. And thank you to everyone as well. I hope everyone learned something today and feels a little bit more confident going into the career fair next week. I will end the recording here, but we will stay on answering questions that maybe we didn't get to.